Good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda Fischel. I am the Secretary of ORUUC's Board of Trustees, and I'm here to welcome you all to this Sunday service. I'd especially like to welcome those of you who are here for the first time or who are back for the first time in a long time. If that describes you, I would invite you to do two things. The first is, if you're on Facebook, look for the ORUUC Facebook group. This is the way that the congregation stays connected throughout the week between services, and you'll learn a lot about what's going on in the community there. The other thing is that after service, there are a number of groups available that the congregation can choose from. One particular group that I would recommend is Inquirers. This is a group that's specifically for newcomers to our church or to Unitarian Universalism to learn more about us. And you can attend that by just staying right here after service. Today's topic is going to be the history and theology of Unitarian Universalism, and I went to one of those not too long ago, and it was fun. I'd like to take a brief opportunity to remind or invite everyone to also look for the ORUUC Virtual Rummage Group. This is the week where we would normally be doing a rummage sale, but in order to stay safe and healthy, we're reimagining that and we've moved it online. So you can get to that by searching Facebook for ORUUC Virtual Rummage, or you can email me at oruucrummage@gmail.com and I will help you get connected with that. Every week for well over a decade now, we have sent half the undesignated Sunday offering to an outside organization or a shared ministry whose mission we support. For the month of September, the Split the Plate recipient is the Fresh Fruit for Kids ministry, and that is a shared ministry that is run by church members. There are kids throughout Oak Ridge without enough food to last through the weekend, so they receive a weekly supplement of food from both Second Harvest, and then Fresh Fruit for Kids partners with Second Harvest Backpack Program to make sure that students who are food insecure have access to fresh fruit over the weekend in addition to other foods. When the offering comes around, please be the generous people that you are. Today, Oak Ridge UU Church has the honor of sharing our service with our neighbors, Foothills Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Marilyn Finley from FOOF has a couple of announcements as well.
Thank you. It's good to be with everyone this morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Just a couple of announcements. If you're visiting and your intention is to visit FOOF, we have a visitor card in the chat. Reverend Laura has put that for everyone. You can register and also find out more about us. Also, as is our practice at FOOF, we will have a coffee hour following the service. The information about the coffee hour, you can see the Zoom meeting that will also be posted at the end of this service. It's just an opportunity to spend time together in a casual way online in these times. I wanted to tell you about our very good, interesting Share the Plate opportunity this month. It's called Good Neighbors. And Good Neighbors of Blount County, its mission is to help lift up our Blount County neighbors out of temporary crisis. Good Neighbors provides resources to maintain and or increase the ability of our neighbors to cope with the challenges of everyday life, which, as we know, are more extensive now than ever. We do this in an atmosphere of love and respect, building partnership through which Christ's love can grow, and by advocating for social justice within Blount County. Good Neighbors is a 501c3 community ministry. All donations with either STP or Good Neighbors or GN in the memo line will go to Good Neighbors directly. All other donations will support our Foothills Fellowship. You can find the information on where to send that in the chat box, but very briefly, you can do it online at foof.org/give or our snail mail address, which is 1039 Hampshire Drive, Maryville 37801. Thank you very much, and I would like to now let us all worship together.
The universal act of creation is all there is. Consciousness infuses all things, animate and inanimate, with agency and location in the universe. The broiling cauldron of potential causes the creation of new life and new sources of originality. To create is to assert ourselves in a way that is risky, that invites stepping into the unknown. To risk is to contribute your unique gifts of creation into the universe. What can you do to risk what has been given you to expand love and grace in this world?
In the world of the driven, let us be drawn in.
Let your love be a given.
Let us be drawn in.
To imagine, to dream,
To create, to redeem.
For the sake of the living, let us be drawn in.
This morning, at the turning point of the fall equinox, at the head of the year in the Jewish calendar, and the rising glory of color in the woods and the mountains of East Tennessee, we light our chalice, not only to signify our place and our part among our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations, but as a sign of our place and our part in the community of memory and hope that lines the pathway of history. Joined with our ancestors and with those who will come after, we pledge to do what we can with the strength that we have for the love revolution rising up even now in our hearts and throughout the whole land until justice and joy is the prevailing condition of this life that we share. Let us worship as one, and as we begin, let us join in song, still on mute, with When the Spirit Says Do.
I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. And when the Spirit I'm gonna do, oh yeah, I'm gonna do what the Spirit says. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. And when the Spirit says sing, I'm gonna sing, oh yeah, I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna dance when the Spirit says dance. I'm gonna dance when the Spirit says dance. And when the Spirit says dance, I'm gonna dance, oh yeah, I'm gonna dance when the Spirit says dance. I'm gonna pray when the Spirit says pray. I'm gonna pray when the Spirit says pray. And when the Spirit says pray, I'm gonna pray, oh yeah, I'm gonna pray when the Spirit says pray. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. And when the Spirit says shout, I'm gonna shout, oh yeah, I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. I'm gonna love when the Spirit says love. I'm gonna love when the Spirit says love. And when the Spirit says love, I'm gonna love, oh yeah, I'm gonna love when the Spirit says love. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. And when the Spirit says do, I'm gonna do, oh yeah, I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do.
And now we move into the space of worship where we are invited to bring more of ourselves forward, to share a little light as we are connected by light and sound and love. So there's a couple of things that we do at ORUUC when we engage in the altar building. So if you've got a candle around you, you can light it and hold it up to your camera, and your screen might be shared. You can share your light with the people of FOOF, with the people of ORUUC, sharing a little bit of yourself and a little bit of your space and your love. You might also share one word in the chat box that represents a prayer or a hope or a concern that you might be carrying right now. And if you have more detailed prayer requests that you want to be shared with the spoken prayer following altar building, you can send those to the email listed on the screen, oruuc.community.prayers@gmail.com. Let us bring more of ourselves, risking that act of creative, co-creative sharing into our worship space this morning.
Knock me off of my feet, but I think it's time for me to start walking again. Stop running away from things. Next time you see me, I will be singing a new song. I am learning to shine on, shine on, shine on. There'll be time enough for darkness when everything's gone. Shine on, shine on. There is work to be done before the dawn. It's been hard not to give in, and it ain't easy living in hard times. I know it's weighing on your mind. Next time you see me, I'll be uplifting, yes, I'll give you hope. I am learning as I go to shine on.
I invite you now into a time of prayer, of going inward, of centering and meditation. O Spirit of life, dwelling within us, dancing between and among us, and beckoning us beyond our own separate lives. Spirit of life, best seen in this world as a big, wide, open love. Be with us in this hour. We come today full hearts, deep gratitude for many gifts in our lives, humility for all that is not done, for all the times we have stayed small. We come with sadness and longing, with joy, and we come leaning as best we are able into hope. Please listen now. As a community, let us listen and let that spirit, that big, wide love, also hear these hearts' longings. We have son Jeff, who asks healing wishes for his mom, Shirley Brooks, who has suffered a broken arm. May all who are injured, suffering, who are in need of healing, be held in our hearts and open to this spirit that dwells with all of us. And we have Minister Laura, who asks that these dear ones in the Foothills congregation be held in prayer. Beth Bannock, Kathy Petrie, and Kathy Pacey. May we take a moment now, each of us, all of us, and hold these three dear ones in care and call to mind those in our own lives whom we know are in need of extra love and care this morning. Take a moment now and call those dear ones into your hearts. We have also one of our Oak Ridge congregants who asks that we remember their uncle who died of COVID this week. Please hold this beloved uncle, his wife, his children, and this whole family in the warm embrace of prayer. Let us take a moment now and do that. And as we do, let us hold in love, in connection, all who are suffering from the devastating losses of COVID. All who are ill, all who are mourning ill and deceased ones. O Spirit of life, hold us in this time of loss that is hard to even get our arms around and understand. And yet we are together. We are not alone. We are able to come together and hold and love and hope. We also rejoice this day. We rejoice for the beauty of this fall morning. Fall is coming, the coolness, the clear air, the color. We give thanks for this world which holds us all and offers us such beauty, such opportunity to restore ourselves. We are grateful for this community. Gathered though we are online, we are a community. We can feel the bonds. We can hold one another, even as we gather at a distance. Let us take a moment and feel and know and claim our connectedness. O Spirit of life, we hold up these burdens and losses and our joy, and we honor all not yet ready to be spoken aloud. We offer these, our prayers of the people, in awe, in gratitude, and with hope. Blessed be, and amen.
Shine on, shine on. There'll be time enough for darkness when everything's gone. Shine on, shine on. There is work to be done before the dawn. There is work to be done, so you got to shine on.
In 1964, the Freedom Summer Project was an effort to register as many Black voters as possible in Mississippi after almost a century of Jim Crow. While voter registration might seem a benign undertaking, the effort sparked a violent backlash. Over 1,000 volunteers were arrested, 80 Freedom Summer workers were beaten, 37 churches and 30 Black homes or businesses were bombed or burned, 4 civil rights workers killed, along with 3 local Black Mississippians for their perceived support of the right to vote. One of the people who spent those 10 weeks in Mississippi in 1964 was a Unitarian minister from Oak Ridge, Arthur Graham. He was asked to go down there by the board of this church and his wife, Betty, after some conversation between them, also gave her blessing. It was in line with what the congregation and Reverend Graham had done at a local level. It was an expression of who the church was. It's an expression of what Unitarian Universalism is, a commitment to extend oneself despite risk into a world of injury and despair with lives and choices that testify to hope. It is who we are. It is what we do. The offering is only one of the ways we extend ourselves thus. As we enjoy the offertory, let us keep in mind the impact of Good Neighbors in Blount County, and a Fresh Fruit for Kids in Oak Ridge. And most of all, let's remember who we are, what we're for, how we're going to show up, and respond as we can. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Red and gold, that's my name, and I'm there on the end of each and every day. Blue skies or rain, clear cloudy days, I am there. Come and find me, and the hillside my friend. On her shoulders where I go to lay my head. High above the sea, in her arms soft and green, she is there to lay beside me. And my lady, clear blue water, for the way I love to rest myself upon her. And everywhere you see, she is looking after me until I go, just like so many. But I'm here, red and gold. In the evenings I am something to behold. And in my waking hours I lie among the flowers. I am here, come and find me.
May the gifts of the people nourish the wider community, not only with resources, but also with hope. As we bless others, may we strengthen our own commitment to be undaunted, unapologetic, unbossed, and unbought. As free people, we dedicate these gifts in our lives to the vision of the beloved community.
We now join with the FOOF covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its blessing. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant.
Rooted in love, we covenant, together in peace, to face conflict with compassion, to see strength in diversity, to share laughter and tears, to honor the profound in each of us. With purpose and passion, we care for one another and grow together, rooted in love.
This is the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. There's no food, there's no water. People die without food and water. Nothing grows there, so when the wind blows, the shape of the desert changes. People lose their way. The desert is a dangerous place. People do not go there unless they have to. It takes courage to go into the desert. The people of God were living in a place where the rains did not come. The crops had no water, so they could not grow. There was no grain to grind to make bread. Everyone was hungry. The children cried in their sleep. So the mothers and fathers decided to go to a new land where there was food. They had to go even if it meant crossing the desert. Their journey began. It was hard in the desert, but they kept going toward a land called Egypt. In the land called Egypt, the king was called Pharaoh. When the people came to the land of Egypt, they found food and work, but the Pharaoh trapped them. They could not go home again. They had to do what Pharaoh said. They had to live where Pharaoh said. They had to get up when the Pharaoh said and go to bed when the Pharaoh said. They had to eat what the Pharaoh said. They had to do the work the Pharaoh said. They had to do everything the Pharaoh said. They were slaves. One of the people whose name was Moses came to the Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." The Pharaoh said no. Moses went back many times to tell the Pharaoh to let his people go, but the Pharaoh always said no. Then many strange things happened in the land, but the Pharaoh always said no. Then something terrible happened. The oldest boy in each Egyptian family, even in the family of the Pharaoh, died. The oldest boys in the families of the people of God did not die because the people made a mark on their doors of their house. They put the blood of the lamb there, and the angel of death passed over them. When Moses went back this time and said, "Let my people go," the Pharaoh said, "Yes." The people began to hurry to get everything ready. They packed all they could carry, and they made bread for the journey. There was no time to put leaven in the bread and let it sit so it would swell up and get puffy like the bread we buy in the store today. It was flat. You can still eat this bread today. It is called matzo. Whenever you taste it, you can still taste this story. The people went as fast as they could. They were afraid the Pharaoh would change his mind. Suddenly they heard the sound that they did not want to hear. The ground began to shake. The Pharaoh's army was coming after them. The beating of the horses' hoofs and the rolling of the chariots sounded like thunder. The army of Pharaoh pushed the people against the water. They did not know what to do. God came so close to Moses, and Moses so close to God, that he knew how to take the people through the water into freedom. This one looks scared and can barely move. This one is running. This one is happy. This one is confused. When all the people were safe on the other side, the water closed behind them and they were free. The army of the Pharaoh could not get them. Now all of the people were free on the other side. They were so happy, they just had to give thanks to God. And Miriam, who is Moses' sister, led the dancing.
For those Fufians who may be wondering what it is we're doing here, and as a reminder for ORUCCians, when we were able to worship together in the sanctuary, this is the time, following the story for all ages, that the children would leave the service. And as a way to bless them and welcome them into children's time, the center aisle in our sanctuary, people stood up and formed an arch. And then we sang a song whose words were written by our own Nancy Starr to bless them in their time. So at this time, I invite you to form an arch and welcome the children into our hearts.
Beneath our arms we shelter you. You warm our hearts as you pass through. May our love guide you as you go, to help you learn and help you grow.
So there I was, the energy of anticipation thrumming around me like an engine, my feet already screaming in highly impractical shoes. I was nervous, more nervous than I'd been before, at least in a long time, and I was no stranger to performing then at 26, having been a musician for years and coming from a creative family, but this was something completely different. I had never performed at a drag show before, and all of this was very new to me, and kind of scary also. I heard Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the stage Merriweather Storm, which was my drag name. That was my cue. And I was not a dancer. I had never really danced before. Once or twice, I always felt like someone was judging me, staring at me, insecure compared to how empowered I felt as a musician or a poet. And I stepped out of that curtain as my songs started playing. And from this body that had always felt awkward and tall and strange came just dramatic flow and gestures. I did a leaping spring in 6-inch heels and I landed it somehow. I did not know what I was doing, but in a whirlwind of heat and sound and light, I was doing it, spinning, falling a couple of times and playing each one off like it was planned. Before I knew it, it was over. And I was staring into a bright purple light, holding a fistful of a couple of 1s and 5s. I hadn't counted on performing a second song, as I found out I was doing, but I was in for a penny and in for a pound. I went up to the changing room and promptly began to panic at my unpreparedness. But I would soon find myself blessed by another performer, an older trans woman who suggested that I just take what I had and rearrange things, wear my cape as a skirt, a few other adjustments like fix my face. The worst you can do is learn something, she said. I went back on at my time and I performed again, even knowing less of what I was doing, and I was certainly clumsy. But I had a good time and I did learn something. I learned just how playful gender, this thing that often felt like a heavy weight to me, could be, turning it into a bunch of possibilities. I learned just how much fun getting up on a stage and messing around and trying things could be. I learned that I could learn to be more comfortable in myself, as myself. All from a chance encounter with a new kind of performance, a new way for me to be creative and get closer to that creative force that sustains us. So friends, should you find your heart stirring towards some new creative impulse, don't let that worming doubt sink your ship before it sails, because you truly never know what you are capable of until an effort is made. As Unitarian Universalists, we are called to encourage one another to spiritual growth, to deepen the depths of our humanity, to explore the myriad ways in which we might be becoming, taking creative risks. And that's just a part of spiritual growth, a key part. So friends, let our lives be a dance. Let our art be a prayer, whatever that art is. Let us experiment in the creative, stepping out from behind whatever curtain we've been waiting behind. Today is a grand day to try something new in the playful, sacred, creative act of becoming more yourself.
The supreme good is like water, which benefits all of creation without trying to compete with it. It gathers in unpopular places. Thus it is like the Tao. The location makes the dwelling good. Depth of understanding makes the mind good. A kind heart makes the giving good. Integrity makes the government good. Accomplishments make your labors good. Proper timing makes a decision good. Only when there is no competition will we all live in peace.
The Russian novel Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy is over 800 pages long, with any number of characters and sprawling subplots, but the heart of the story is the love affair between Anna Karenina and the seductive Count Vronsky. As the story begins, Anna is a young woman married with 2 children in a life of comfort and privilege. And she's all the questions of her life and status have been long settled. In fact, she's in the position of advising her brother and young friend about how to calculate risk in their own romantic lives. Despite the glitter of ballrooms and the large houses and gardens, the world of the novel she inhabits is bleak. As a woman, Anna's choices are stark. Her only safety and status is in marriage. Her access to her own children depends on staying married, and so she is trapped in a loveless arrangement. When she answers the stirring of her heart and pursues an affair with Count Vronsky, everything gradually and irreversibly starts to fall apart. We are to understand that it's just the way of the world. A few weeks ago, I talked about Isabel Wilkerson's new book, which describes the racial caste system that persists in this country. Wilkerson methodically shows how a society organized to systemically deny dignity and opportunity to Black people echoes the same dynamics for Jews in the Third Reich and the Dalits in India. A caste system is held in place not only through violence, but also through cultural and moral norms, through voices that justify it as the only way and the right way as well. In the 19th century Russia, despite all her wealth, Anna Karenina also makes her choices in the context of a caste system, the caste system of gender. It is so familiar, this caste system, it can be hard to see. For instance, this past week, Molly and I closed on refinancing our house. Throughout the stack of documents we were given to sign, here in the year 2020, I was always listed as the primary homeowner, and Molly, in every case, only the secondary one, just along for the ride. When we discovered a mistake in those papers, again, a difference surfaced. The woman that we were dealing with must have apologized about 30 times, her voice rising up into quavering heights. Meanwhile, the man, whose mistake it actually was, responded with the steady tones and confidence of assumed competence. Each of them, through their lives, has learned what they need to do to survive in this world. Part of the importance of marriage equality a few years ago was not only for the rights and the protection of the households it directly affected, it was that marriage equality helped scramble some of the terms of the gender caste system. The same is true for people brave enough to live honestly outside the binary of their assigned gender. It's part of the gift of free people. How free people live surfaces and shows us all the constraints of the world to which we have agreed. Because maybe, like the world of Anna Karenina, an awful arrangement seemed not only normal, but also unyielding and permanent. Joan Ruth Bader was born in 1933 into just such a world, one where women's pathways were blocked at every turn. She found a partner, Martin Ginsburg, who celebrated her mind and supported her battles to gain access and standing through her own education and early employment. Her arguments before the Supreme Court in the 1970s dared to propose equal standing for women in matters of property ownership, banking, benefits, and employment, things we might now take for granted, but which at the time were so different from the world as it was, that she struggled to find ways to present her cases in a way the 9 male justices of the Supreme Court could hear. Often presenting to the court, she demonstrated how gender disparity hurt men because the fate of men seemed more compelling to the court, she observed. Proud of her Judaism, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died the day before yesterday, the first night of Rosh Hashanah, which starts the Jewish New Year. The story most associated with Rosh Hashanah is that of Adam and Eve and the imagination of the world born again with a fresh new start. Today in this service, we've heard another Jewish story, that of the Exodus, of the people of God breaking away from the trappings of Egypt to go into the wilderness, where they hope they are headed in the direction of justice and mercy and the blessings of life. Maybe in the year 2020, that's a story that more resonates, a story of wilderness, of uncertainty, of having left the world we knew, but still so very far from the world we dream of. These are wilderness times. Wilderness times in the condition of this fragile world, wilderness times in some of our most important relationships, wilderness times maybe in each one of our lives as we face the uncertainty of a seemingly unraveling world and the fear that forces and voices of dehumanization could further lash out and clamp down in the service of the caste system that has suffocated so many. We can barely comprehend the reality of 200,000 deaths in this country from the coronavirus since March. It would be as if 5 airplanes every day had crashed, killing everyone on board for almost 7 months straight with no end yet in sight. And no public memorials or way to come together as a country to grieve what we've lost. It may seem that we've lost not only precious lives, but also the ability to do much about it, as if we're caught in an amusement park funhouse without any clear exit. All the old pathways and signs that promised stability and security now removed, the old quaint notions of common ground, unity, and the institutions that upheld or at least aspired to a sense of fair play. So much of what we might have counted on for stability just washed away now. And it may seem that the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg only plunges us further into the wilderness, into terrain without pathways or signs, and certainly no escape. As grim and predetermined as the world in which Anna Karenina meets her inevitable fate. This week marks the start of fall, of days of less sunlight and warmth. Whatever we'll do, however we'll respond to this moment in history, and in our households, and in our lives, we will do more and more in the growing dark. And that, in the end, is where I find some hope, because maybe visions of sunlight have mesmerized us for too long. Maybe the expectation of summer and abundance has dulled our senses too long. Maybe we've forgotten the power of people making their way in the dark without promise, without power, without glib expectation. No longer relying upon the power of the world, but upon something deeper, more primal. A few years ago, every week for 2 months, Tandy and I recited on Sundays the question from Sikh activist and spiritual teacher Valerie Carr, who asked, "What if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb?" Maybe that again is the orienting question for us here in the wilderness of September 2020. How will we live? As if we are in the suffocating darkness of the tomb or the creative and life-bringing darkness of the womb? While we tell a story of wilderness today, maybe at the same time we're also telling and creating a new story of creation. A year ago, out west, my family visited a number of Indian reservations. At one of them, a Ute elder explained how after his people were forced from the wide prairies into the cramped arid valley of the desert Southwest, they brought with them their old stories and their ancient ways, but their new context meant that new stories arose, new interpretations, and new ways to live. As a people, they had to learn to weave the new with the old and also with what was yet to come. For them, the wilderness of a life they didn't choose demanded the risk of creativity. This is the nature, I think, of life on the margins, a life of ongoing renewal and invention, a life of creativity, forever adapting for the sake of a future. This is why those who live on the margins, those without worldly power, are often endowed with the imagination of a world other and better than the one that we know. The poet Audre Lorde said something similar. She said, The true feminist operates out of a lesbian consciousness, whether or not she ever sleeps with a woman. A lesbian consciousness can imagine a world defined in different terms than the ones setting the terms of today, this caste system. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think, operated out of such a radical imagination. The risks that she took and the purpose to which she gave her life was based in her capacity to dream a world different than the one all around. The people of God leaving Egypt also operate out of such imagination. They depart the familiar and constricting trappings of the world they've known to enter adversity in the name of their dream. That's the risk and invitation we're called to this week, to let go of the security of Egypt and of sunlight, and to give ourselves in trust to the world we imagine, to our holy dream, to orient ourselves to that horizon, to act and to live in that faith. We are promised nothing. There is no sure reward for living in that way. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, setting out, didn't make the choices that would guarantee her own worldly standing. Instead, she risked living boldly, creating the world she dreamed of with each word, with each choice. I'll tell you what I'm learning about how it is to live in that way. This fall, I've started to take voice lessons. As it turns out, the way I've sung my whole life is a way that squeezes my voice and forces my breath to arrive at the right pitch. My voice teacher tells me that if I'm ever going to sing like I want, it's going to take an unsteady time of being out of control. And sure enough, this new way is less like directing the sound that leaves my body and more like allowing something wilder to flow through, something like a river, like water, and it doesn't sound great. It wavers this way and that. It's far from the dream, but there is power in it. I can feel it. And week after week, I'm learning to trust it, because the voice I'm heading toward has more power and spirit than the one for so long that I learned to control. Here in the wilderness, on the cusp of a new world, as the fruitful darkness still grows, that's the invitation today, to risk letting an unwieldy wild power flow through us, to allow our lives to follow that power into new places, new ways, and into new creative acts. Promised no certain outcome and not even safety. The old world is over and a new day has come. Even Anna Karenina gives the hint that generations to come will know a new landscape. So together in trust, let's imagine and welcome the world that is coming and take the holy risk now to be part of its creation. So may it be.
This week I invite you to do one thing that feels risky and feels important to you. One thing you know will not be easy but will move you to being more fully who you are and who this world so needs you to be. It can be something you write, something you say, something you do, or maybe something you refrain from doing, stop doing. Whatever risk you decide to take it wide open. Take it with your eyes open, your heart open, your full self in, and know this: you are part of a wider network of risk takers. Imagine a world where each of us takes at least one risk a week to be more rooted in love, more fully alive with purpose and passion. What a world it can be. And let us sing now together, raise our voices in our closing hymn, Soon the Day Will Arrive.
The poet Adrian Rich said, "My heart is moved by all I cannot save, so much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world." With that in mind, let us be fools for love and pilgrims for justice, and until we meet again, may we walk, roll, and move in beloved community. Go in peace.